Hi,
Hello,
and welcome to
the future of politics. Today we are doing constitutional reforms 2010 to present.
So, recap quiz. Name one constitutional change that increased democracy in the UK. We'll give you a minute to think. Democratisation. So, Tony Blair increased participation by making citizenship a mandated subject in school.
Okay, so one constitutional change that increased protection of citizens' rights. So this was obviously individual rights. So New Labour under Tony Blair established more entrenchment, which is protection, when it came to human rights.
Then name one constitutional change that modernised the UK constitutional arrangements. So that was devolution, which, for an example, allowed Scotland and Wales to have their own parliament, got the Welsh Assembly and the Scottish Assembly, and allowed votes on regional issues.
No, so brought in like mayors,
Yeah.
London Mayor, I think
Yeah.
was at that time as well. So a bit of context to the 2010 general election. This basically, we saw a hung parliament, so no one had like a very big majority. Well, there's no majority. So the convention is that the party with the most seats, which was the Conservatives, get the first chance to form government in a coalition. So David Cameron and Nick Clegg came to an agreement to form the coalition. So Conservatives and Lib Dems, causing a few issues because the Conservatives and Lib Dems have very different had very different, and still do to this day, very different manifesto pledges.
Which also meant that the, Salisbury Convention was kind of, it couldn't be used because it wasn't in either of their manifesto pledges if they had to,
change them and come to an agreement.
Yeah. Also, the Lib Dems were in favour of significant constitutional reform, particularly changing first past the post to more representative electoral system, because obviously they're a smaller party, and in first past the post you don't really have a chance if you're a small party. And they wanted to restructure the House of Lords to a full democratically elected second chamber. The Conservatives, however, obviously they're very traditional and a status quo, and I think they wanted proportional representation, the Lib Dems, but the Tories only agreed to AV, which
It'll come up in the, obviously. So the first key area of change was modernisation. So the House of Lords Reform Bill in 2012. It was obviously the Lib Dems wanted a fully elected, but the Conservatives settled, and they reformed it to 80% of members who were directly elected and 20% would be nominated by the PM. But it was never passed. Obviously, it remains a bill and not an act.
And then the succession to the crown. Wait, is that an act or a bill?
I think it's an act because it is
okay,
in play.
So Succession to the Crown Act 2013 changed the inheritance of the crown
Go on.
to disregard gender, and also removed restrictions on religion.
However, this wasn't that important because Lizzie was in power anyway, so it disregarded gender as it was. However, the House of Lords Reform Act of 2014 allowed peers to resign. Obviously they're life peers, so they would never they couldn't ever give up their seat, and also those convicted of serious criminal offences could also be removed.
So evaluating modernisation. So successes, the monarchy is now reflective of modern day views. Obviously there's been a rise in feminism, specifically women empowerment and stuff.
Go women, go girls. However, obviously a few things did fail. So the House of Lords still remains the only unelected second chamber in the world, and the changes to allowing people to resign did nothing, basically, because you make money for just being there. Why would you resign? You make £350 a day for literally showing up. You could be there for 5 minutes and you've bagged £350.
Most of the old people sleep as well, so it's and impact of changing the royal family is literally minuscule because the constitutional monarchy,
they don't really do much anyway, so it doesn't make a difference.
Even though it's like, oh, representation, it's like, babe.
What are you doing?
And then democratisation. So, Fixed Term Parliament Act in 2011 required the Prime Minister to have 2/3 of support in the House of Commons to call an election before the 5-year term was concluded. 2021, I'm assuming you mean it was appealed?
Repealed, so it was taken back.
Oh, okay.
Because basically, like, obviously, if they were really popular in the middle of their term, or like 4 years in, they could just go, yeah, we'll hold an election now while I'm really popular, so then I get in for another 5 years. If they wanted to do something like serious that they're like, oh, people might not like, and then obviously a referendum was held on the alternative voting system, which is AV, which Maya mentioned earlier in the intro.
Just having a drink.
So like a national referendum was held in 2011 to replace First Past the Post with AV, with only 41% of people turning out and 68% of people said no. So clearly no one was really that big into change.
Exactly.
I feel like it was also like very confusing.
Yeah.
Like I think a lot of people
Just
like
some
First Past the
random-
Post because it is simple.
Yeah.
And they're like, what are you
What is
trying
the
to do?
need? Because
Surely
it
it works.
basically come
Yeah.
up with the same results anyway. So, evaluating democratisation, the successes, the Fixed Term Act helped limit the power that the Prime Minister has over like controlling the timings of elections, and it kind of held them more accountable through their term and limited, like they can't just use it for the benefit of
They can't just
themselves.
Yeah. Like I said before, you know, if they're really popular 4 years in, they're like, yeah, I'm holding an election now, so I get another 5 years into it.
Yeah.
However, the Fixed Term Parliament Act was not followed by Theresa May or Boris Johnson, and has, like, obviously in 2021 it was repealed because no one listened to it. And like I said before, with 41% turnout, there was no appetite for change to the electoral system amongst the public. No one wanted it.
So, devolution, quite a few examples for this one, actually. So, the Scotland Act of 1998 and 2006 established a democratically elected Scottish established a democratically elected Scottish Parliament, which had the power to legislate on specific matters such as education, but not like major issues like tax. So it's kind of more like local, less important.
Yeah, the Wales Act of 2006 did the exact same in Wales, obviously. The same for Northern Ireland in 1998.
Yeah. And then the Scotland Act of 2016 granted more power to the Scottish Parliament.
The Wales Act of 2017 and 2020 granted more power to the Welsh Assembly.
And then the independence referendum that Scotland had in 2014 was to grant them independence, but 55% of people voted no, and it was like removing Westminster's control.
Although there's an argument that if they held it now, because of Brexit, they would have independence, so they could go back to the EU, because Scotland were quite big fans of it.
Yeah.
So I think they held it well in 2014, so they're like, well, you voted no in 2014, so you don't need one just yet.
Yeah.
Or
Even
another
though it's
referendum.
been like 10 years.
Okay, so evaluating it. So a success is that devolution was, like I said, arguably the only reason Scotland didn't vote for independence in 2014. Like, they had somewhat power over themselves and how they governed, so why would they need the independence? It also allowed for cultural expression to be respected in these regions, like the Gender Recognition Act of 2022 and the drug amnesty rooms in 2023. Like, that is a Scotland-only thing, and they wanted that so they can have that.
And they one of like the first countries to end like period poverty. Yeah. Failures of it. The Northern Ireland Assembly has to be suspended on multiple occasions due to infighting. Like, I think there was an example of Theresa May where she said, you, like, if you don't, like, the Protestants and the Catholics, if you don't make up, we're going to force gay marriage and abortion to be legal, and they didn't make up, so it just went through, and everybody hated it in Northern Ireland, but because they just couldn't sort it out, it went through.
It's also because they have the proportional system, so no one holds a majority, so they can't pass on every single, so they pretty much have 50-50, so nothing's ever going to get passed through.
Yeah.
And they are just going to fight because it's like gridlock.
Yeah. And then another failure is that they have no appetite for devolution within the like northeast in England,
like regional bodies in England.
Yeah, I think we've like, well, not we, but like the northeast has like been like, somebody said like do it, and then they were like no.
Yeah.
Great explanation.
Like, no.
And then independence was not achieved, so parliamentary sovereignty is the preferred system of government.
So moving on to individual rights, got the Human Rights Act of 1998, which incorporated the European Convention of Human Rights into UK law, allowing UK courts to make legal decisions on incidents when individual human rights have been impacted, meaning the UK citizens get faster and more accessible justice.
The Freedom of... I don't know why I keep saying... The Freedom of Information Act 2000 gave greater access to information held about, like, the public. The public were given greater access to information held about them by government bodies.
Yeah. The Equality Act of 2010, it promoted
Do you remember? Anyway.
No. You just name dropped it. The Equality Act of 2010 promoted fairer society in relation to protected characteristics. So obviously, like, you can't be denied work just because you're like a woman or pregnant or like an ethnic minority. Like,
yeah,
you know, they've got to say there's a different reason, because they can't just outright go
Yeah. No, wasn't there that housing thing like ages ago, like where they made a law saying that you can't stop ethnic minorities buying a house just because they're an ethnic minority.
Yeah, because they didn't want like ethnic minorities were going into quotation marks white neighbourhoods.
Yeah.
Because they were scared that they'd drop the housing price, and it's like, mate, if they've got money,
yeah,
let them buy the house.
Real. Protection of freedom as... I feel like we should redo this.
No. Run with it. Who's actually listening? Guys, if you're listening 12 minutes in, you're getting the true uncensored Mia Maya right here.
Right. The Protection of Freedoms Act 2010 also offered citizens greater protection of their privacy against the state by
reducing Ribena.
Ryvita. By reducing the spying power of MI5 and MI6.
And data
James
protection.
Bond.
Yeah, true. You could also kind of say Austin Powers, I guess. He was a spy. Don't think he worked for MI5 or MI6 though, but he was a spy and he was British, just back in the 60s. Anyway, Data Protection Act of 2018, basically the GDPR implemented into the UK. I ain't got a clue what GDPR means, guys. I can't lie, so just Google it.
Wait, no, it'll be a law.
No, because it like these are the examples, so it can't even be like, right, anyway, just Google it. Implemented in the UK. So there's greater laws around how the public and private companies must handle individuals' personal data. So you can't just like go selling it willy-nilly or giving it to like some internet sleuths. Okay. You just gotta it's
gotta roll with it. Okay, so evaluation individual rights. Those successes.
There's now a greater awareness of minority groups and their rights. So like the Black Lives Matter movement was very big. Obviously this was just
Stop
after
Asian hate and stuff like that. And then obviously privacy rights are upheld by public bodies, including schools and hospitals. So you can't just walk into a school and be like, yo, is this person here? They can't be like, yeah, they're in that room.
Yeah. They can't just go, yeah, here's a kid.
They've got the dogs out.
They didn't need to know. Guys, if you're listening 14 minutes in, please don't bring this up. Yeah, Mr. Casey, if you're listening, don't ever speak to me ever again. No, I'm joking, please do, I love you. Anyway. No, Supreme Court has shown a new willingness to protect individual rights against abuses of power from the state and greater protection of privacy and rights.
Wait,
however,
name drop?
Yeah.
Okay.
Who else is listening that doesn't go to our school?
Go on.
Failures.
Oh,
however,
failures, sorry. Well, it's because I started with... Anyway. So, failures, not Scotland, actually. Increased role of the Supreme Court is controversial, as these judges are not elected by the people and therefore they're not democratic.
So that was just another House of Lords.
Yeah, it's kind of linked to modernisation. Like, we're on the only unelected chamber. There are limitations on freedom of information, like national security, and the legal expansion of rights was limited due to like privacy and information.
So moving on to electoral system. So we covered it briefly with AV and the referendum, but now we're going to go a little bit more in depth.
A little bit deeper. So we've got simple plurality system, which is first past the post, which means that the winner only needs one vote more than their closest opponent, which can be less than 50%. So I'll give an example because it's kind of hard to wrap your head around. So if the Conservatives got 30% of the vote and Labour got 30%... No, wait.
Say the Conservatives got 35% of the vote, Labour got 30% of the vote, and then Lib Dems got 30... Wait, that's 35 again, isn't it? Right, let's say the Conservatives got 40%, Labour got 20%, 25%, and then Lib Dems got 15%, then the Tories still don't have 50%, but they've won. They've won more than 50% of the seats in.
Even though more than 50% of people didn't want them in.
Yeah.
Because they're the
majority.
Biggest of the smallest, basically.
Yeah, winner takes all. Like if you win by like 2%, you've won more than 50% of the seats.
Yeah.
Like you have a majority in Parliament. Which is obviously then unrepresentative because, you know, more than 50% of the people, the public didn't want you there, but you're there anyway. And this is used in Westminster. And
how is this only 15 minutes?
MPs are voted... why did I go like Scottish then? MPs are voted by constituencies, each getting one seat. So obviously there's 650 constituencies in the UK. So that's why it's kind of not representative either, because like the percentages don't equal who actually won the seats.
Yeah.
Because there can be like loads of people in one constituency and about 4 in another. Obviously there's not actually just 4 people, but... Yeah. And it's simple.
Like in Wales, where there's more sheep than people.
And it is simple. You just tick a little X in a box with the one person you want to vote for.
It's just like, oh, I'm going down to vote. You don't have to think about it. Well, I mean, you do, but like, it's not just really. Like, here's my passport, X. And then you've got majoritarian systems, which requires an absolute majority, so 50% add 1. So there are 2 of these that we learn about. So AV, alternative vote, is you order the preference of your candidates. So say there's me and Charlie, and you put like Charlie first and me second. Then the candidate with the least amount of votes at the end of the first round, they get kicked off. And then everybody who wanted them first, their second preferences... Get
counted up.
Yeah, get moved around and it shifts until...
someone gets 50%. So it's like the person who has 50% or like the majority technically should have the majority, but it's still not completely representative because it's not everyone's first choice.
Yeah. And then you've got SV, which is supplementary vote, where voters get 2 votes and the top 2 candidates after the first round go through, and then second votes are counted until someone holds an overwhelming majority.
Oh, okay. So then proportional representation. So it's literally the percentage of votes equals the percentage of seats in parliaments. It's like one of the most simple ones. So it basically mean that constituencies have multiple candidates or like multiple seats because it's based on percentages and not like area. Preventing a winner-takes-all system, which is obviously, like we said before, used in Northern Ireland. So you can't have a majority in government, so they won't rule in favour of anyone because no one actually does get over 50% of the votes.
Yeah.
Like, in, like, first past the post, so no one's going to get over 50% of the votes in proportional representation. Apart from New Zealand, I think they were one of the only places that had proportional representation and someone won an overwhelming majority, which was quite cool.
And then you have majoritarian systems, which combines elements of majoritarian and plurality. So MPs for constituencies are voted through first past the post, and then larger regions such as North West are voted under proportional representation. So minor parties will still get seats and representation, but then you also have the element of like winner takes all basically, and like.
But not really, because
No,
you
but
just
only in
have
constituencies.
you'd also have to like reform the whole of Parliament because
Yeah.
you'd need more seats, because obviously you'd still have all of your constituencies unless you just conglomerate like 4 into one, but then it's like that is just the regional.
Yeah.
So you just have to like it only work for like new parliaments or like new governing bodies. Anyway, thanks
Thank
for
you
listening to
listening,
the
guys.
podcast. Subscribe, like, share it to all of your friends who do politics. We need to get. This is the best revision material you'll ever find.
Literally, it's so convenient as well.
Yeah, every Friday apart from the ones that we've missed. Just don't think about them.
Bye.